Normally for me to make a YouTube video, it's just like this huge production. I'm really bad at like video editing software and recording equipment, and it's such a stressful task, and it takes me a long time, and I want to write out a script that I kind of like memorize and practice, and then get it all right on camera. Every once in a while, though, I just like get a wild hair up my ass, and there's an opportunity to just do like a quickie thing where I don't have to put literally any effort into it. And I was just sitting around at home, and Braxton's new video came up on my feed, and it's 10 questions, 10 genuine questions for atheists. And I thought, well, hell, I can do that. I can answer that. So yeah, I don't know. Let's just, it's an experiment. Let's see if this works.
Whatsoever. I genuinely want to know the answers to these questions. Question 1. If you have a deconversion story from any world religion, would you mind sharing that story? If you grew up in a non-religious household, what was it like to experience being around other people who were raised religious?
Yeah, I did grow up in a non-religious household, at least not Western religion. My mom identified as a Zen Buddhist. And so there was a lot of philosophical talk in our house, just not a lot of religious talk. It wasn't until I was like 8 or 9 that we moved to a new community of almost entirely evangelicals. That was just the demographic there. And so all my new friends they became aware, that I didn't believe in God. And I became a sort of practice dummy for apologetics and evangelism, and in order to sort of fit in and not be socially ostracized, I had to kind of do a lot of the religious activities. I went to church, I went to youth group, I did the Christian summer camps and all that stuff, and it was fun. But there was also a lot of pressure on me from not just my friends but their parents to convert, as I was being handed Bibles left and right, evidence that demands a verdict, case for Christ, all that stuff. And so at the end of the day, I'm grateful for that experience because it sort of set the trajectory for me becoming interested in philosophy. Apologetics is a gateway to philosophy because it involves philosophy. So it's a gateway drug, kids. Stay away or don't.
Question number 2. Is there anything that Christian apologists or philosophers bring that you actually do consider to be good evidence for God? And if not, how do you define evidence? Straightforward.
Yeah, no, I'm certainly not one of those people that's going to go around saying there's no evidence for the existence of God. There's a few. I could think of a few things that you could plausibly say are more expected under theism than naturalism, which is really all I mean by evidence, right? I mean, if that's not evidence, it doesn't have to be like amazing evidence, but it's evidence. It counts as evidence. I think consciousness, right? The fact that there is like such a thing as a first person point of view, the fact that there is subjectivity at all, the fact that there's anything that it's like to be me, that seems more predicted on theism than naturalism. I like Dustin Crumit's argument from moral knowledge. The fact that we have these intuitions. He calls it knowledge. I mean, whether it's knowledge or not is sort of begs the question, I guess. But yeah, we have really, really strong opinions about what we ought to do and how we ought to treat each other. And that could be more expected on theism than naturalism, I think. Obviously I have my responses to all these things, but I'm just trying to think objectively, like what, behind a veil of ignorance, like what would you expect to see more on theism versus naturalism? Yeah, I'm sure there's, how about just the sheer popularity of Christianity, right? It's like the Louis C.K. bit, what year is it right now, right? It's 2021, 2021 years since what? Well, since Jesus, since the most influential figure in human history, right? That's got to be, a point in favor of Christianity, right? It doesn't settle anything, but it's got to be a point in favor of it. Yeah. All right. What else?
Lee, I'm a dog person. Here's my dog, Indiana. Dogs, cats, both, or neither? Did
Wolves. I'm joking, but I'm not really joking. Growing up, I had a wolf, and that was like the most special relationship I'll ever have, I think. I mean, I guess my son is pretty special, but yeah, I'm both a dog. I was always a dog, or at least a canine person. Now I have cats, and I don't have a dog, and it just kills me. I can't wait to get a dog again. But it took me a long time to figure out how cats work. It's like going from Windows to Macintosh. It's just a completely different operating system. But yeah, I like both. I get both now.
Jesus exist as a single historical individual? And if so, how reasonable do you think it is for people to hold the position that Jesus did not exist?
Yeah, of course, I believe Jesus, the Jesus of Nazareth as the historical figure existed. I don't think. Yeah, I mean, unless you are, obviously, you would want to defer to expert consensus, right? I mean, for any lay person, the smartest move is to defer to expert consensus, all things being equal. And the expert consensus is overwhelmingly that Jesus of Nazareth existed, and that Jesus mythicism is kind of, bullshit. But of course, you can have independent reasons for, if you are Richard Carrier, and you have, a degree in history. Does he have a degree in history, or is he making that up? I don't know what his credential. But let's suppose you have, a doctorate in New Testament criticism or something like that, and you have come to the conclusion on your own because of how you've interpreted the evidence that Jesus never existed. Okay, fine. Then that's not unreasonable. You're still in the minority, but at least you have. You have the credentials to, I don't know. I guess you can get away with that. But in general, I think for somebody like me to deny that Jesus existed when all the experts say otherwise, or most of the experts say otherwise, that would not be particularly reasonable. I think that would be rightly seen as me having an agenda or a foregone conclusion and just working backwards.
Christian friends and family members, which one would stand the best chance of convincing you or persuading you than the others? Even if you think none of them stand a chance, some stand more of a chance than others, right? Who would that be, and why?
Family, I don't know. I mean, I'm the most sort of philosophically, theologically literate in all of my family. So it's, but friends, I mean, do I get to consider someone like Josh Rasmussen a friend? We're friendly. I think somebody like him probably has I mean, he's not just a brilliant philosopher, but he's a brilliant communicator of complicated ideas, right? So, yeah, and he literally wrote a book called How Reason Can Lead to God. So I think, if anybody had a good shot, I think, hours and hours of conversation with him would have the best chance.
What's your favorite film or television series? Contingency argument.
Favorite film or television series? Oh, that's not fair. There's just too many good ones out there. Since we're on the subject of religion, how about The Leftovers? Have you ever seen The Leftovers? Only 3 seasons. Beautiful story. Lots of religious sort of motifs and imagery, which, by the way, when it comes to fiction, I love stuff like that. I love religious symbology and imagery, and I love stories about heaven and the afterlife, and I dig it. I dig all of it. So The Leftovers is the first thing that came to mind, just because I'm already thinking about religion right now. But I can't answer that. There's too many good shows out there.
God's existence can be framed in a number of ways, obviously, but pick one. And what's your favorite response to this sort of contingency argument? Or if you're really ambitious, what's your favorite response to contingency arguments in general?
Oh, there are some really good contingency arguments, and by good I mean to say that, like, you've got Josh Rasmussen again. Um, it's they're good in the sense that it's difficult to figure out exactly which premise you disagree with and why you think that premise is false, right? So that you want that's good in a contingency argument. Similar with ontological arguments. There's ontological arguments like that as well. My kind of sort of general objection to most contingency arguments is just that I don't think necessary beings are a thing, which is kind of like Richard Swinburne's take on it. I don't think the property of necessary existence is possible to have. And then further, even if necessary existence were a thing, I don't think that the property of necessary existence has any explanatory power. It doesn't actually give me any new information about how or why that being exists in the first place and couldn't not exist. It almost sounds like a kind of word game to me. I talk a little bit about this in my video on the modal ontological argument, but I've never done a video on a contingency argument. And the whole, I say that because the whole point of the contingency argument is we're trying to explain things, right? We're trying to account for why things exist. And if you're going to account for why God exists by saying that his nature is to exist, that doesn't tell me anything. You haven't explained anything. And so I think you may as well say that the PSR or a PSR in that case is false because nothing's been explained. So, okay.
Understanding of Christianity, what does it take for a person to become a Christian and experience everlasting life?
Oh, just what my understanding? Well, there's no such thing as Christianity, really. There's different Christianity. There's different versions of Christianity. I think I have a good enough understanding of the different kinds of eschatologies out there to not pretend like there's just one. Most, I think, American Christians would say that, or would at least acknowledge that you at least have to have the right propositional knowledge, right? You have to believe certain propositions necessarily in order to be saved, which is to say that nobody who denies God's existence is getting saved at all. And then it's just a question of how much more what is sufficient for salvation. We know what's necessary for salvation is certain beliefs, but what is sufficient? Works. How much? What kind of works are sufficient for salvation? Those are the questions that I think are going to divide different Christians. Did I answer this question right? Did I even understand it? Maybe I didn't. Who knows?
Think anything in the Bible is true or not? Do you think that the Bible or any passage in the Bible seems to teach eternal conscious suffering in hell? Maybe you think it teaches universal ultimate salvation or annihilation, the idea that people will no longer be conscious but will be annihilated and no longer have a conscious experience of anything. And I should say, I'm partly asking that question because a friend of mine, Chris Date at Rethinking Hell, would be happy to have a discussion or a debate on the subject of whether any Bible passage teaches eternal conscious torment.
Yeah, so I understand that's obviously controversial. I really don't have a dog in this fight, right? It's not it doesn't matter how I interpret scripture. I think eternal conscious torment is well subscribed, in fact, better subscribed than universalism or annihilationism. If I were a Christian, I think I would do whatever exegetical gymnastics I could to justify believing in either universalism or annihilationism, because eternal conscious torment just does not seem logically compatible with a morally perfect God. But yeah, in terms of what does Christianity teach, it just depends on the Christian. There's no such thing as Christianity. There's just different versions of Christian belief. So I didn't mean for that to be a cop-out, but if it was, I'm sorry.
do you think is the most dangerous or problematic issue that theologically conservative Christians hold to? Now, I'm talking about an issue or a position, not a person, a movement, or a party. Well, that's
Yeah, I guess here I would just say I think the belief that an embryo or or even a blastocyst is we have the same moral obligations to that as we do to like a 5-year-old girl. Yeah, I think that's pretty dangerous if it's false, right? I mean, because when it comes to this has to do with the abortion debate, but both sides, the stakes are really high here, right? If I'm wrong about abortion, the stakes are really high. If Braxton is wrong about abortion, the stakes are really high. So, let's assume for now that that it's false that we have the same moral obligations, or that we have any moral obligations to an embryo or a 6-week-old human fetus. Well, now you've just caused immeasurable human suffering for no reason, right? So yeah, that's doing a lot of work. I mean, it's also that belief kind of put us, a decade behind on like stem cell research, right? Like, you're literally preventing us from finding ways of curing, 3rd-degree burns and cancers and stuff, So, yeah, I think that would probably be the most effectively dangerous idea if it's false. Was that all 10?
this for 2021, and thanks for taking the time to watch the video.
I did it.
And I sure hope you will respond in the comments or make your own video in response.
Like I did.
I'd love to hear what you have to say because I genuinely want the answers to these questions.
Cool. Well, thanks, Braxton. And thank you to you at home.